is Holly, and I am here to bring you a series of lessons called Naturalist Discovery Adventures. The way that these work is you will become a naturalist. Do you know what a naturalist is? It is basically someone who spends a lot of time in nature, tunes their mind to be able to look at what they see and ask questions about it and try to figure out the relationships between what they see and other factors that might be at play. And that's really what scientists do in order to figure out what's going on in the natural world. I'm here today at the Wheeler Historic Farm, and behind me is Little Cottonwood Creek, which comes out of the mountains. So on these adventures, we're going to learn about how water moves through an ecosystem and how humans can use that. Humans are a natural part of our ecosystems, and maybe you think we have a responsibility to take care of them, or at least know what it's all about. So join me on these adventures where we will learn about our natural environment, from the water to the air, to the ground below us, the plants around us, and the animals that creep and crawl from beneath our feet, the worms, to the ones that fly high in the sky. On these adventures, you're going to need your notebook. That's really the main thing. So the difference between science and messing around is writing it down. So if you write down your observations, you're doing the process of science. You might also want some other tools like a magnifying glass to help you see really down low, magnify those tiny little microorganisms. We'll look at some soil, and some binoculars to see what's going on far away. You might also want a shovel, a backpack, some sampling containers. Sometimes we'll go take some samples, and your imagination. The most important thing to bring is your imagination. Make sure to ask questions along the way, be open to experiencing new things and understanding more about our environment. At the end of the adventures, we will have learned something about our natural environment. We'll have gotten a little bit messy and had a lot of fun. So I hope you join me and learn a lot on these adventures. Okay, we're approaching a wetland. What do you think a wetland is? Like the name implies, a place that has a lot of water, usually standing water. Here the sign reads, "Wetlands are usually isolated and offer quiet and solitude. They provide opportunities to commune with nature, observe wildlife, and enjoy painting, practicing photography, and enjoying fishing. Wetlands near open streams may also provide canoeing and kayaking opportunities," which is very true. Gonna go take my kayak up to the Bear River, so stay tuned for that, which opens up into a beautiful wetland out by the Great Salt Lake. So we're down a little bit more south of that because Big Cottonwood Canyon, Big Cottonwood Creek, which is over there, will run into the Jordan River, which will run down into the Salt Lake. So check out the posts about the Jordan River, which is a riparian zone where the water meets the edge in a river. Get a lot of diversity. But what do you notice about this wetland? Share your posts, your experience within a wetland. What do you think? What do you notice? What type of plants and animals? You might have seen these. These are willows. But here this is kind of fascinating, right? We're always looking for differences. So here we have one willow, and I do see seeds here. Okay. And the other one has a lot more seeds. This one's a little bit older, further along on its process than the other. Right, so this cool flower is called salsify, also called goat's beard or oyster flower. And it produces a type of fruit from the ovary with one seed. There's one seed there. And a lot of cultures use its root, just kind of looks like a... What does that look like to you? Cultures use it to eat. They eat this root. It's kind of slender. But I wonder what's coming out of it. What do you think that is? Some sort of milky substance. So a lot of plants actually send down what they photosynthesize in their leaves, what the sugars they make. They send them down to the roots to store them. And so my guess is that the pressure, when I pulled it out of the ground, the pressure caused it to come out of the root and into the air. It's lower pressure on the outside, so it wants to come out. Yeah, all right. We're gonna put this guy back in the ground, let it continue growing. All right, and the mystery solved. This stuff is actually, if you touch it, it is really sticky. So this is a sticky latex material that you can actually chew, kind of like gum. Dare ya. This is also called oyster root because I guess the roots taste like oysters. Also, don't recommend eating the root of the salsify. I just tried it. It's gross. Doesn't taste like oysters. Alright, and in this wetland we have this characteristic tree. This is a cottonwood. So what that stream over yonder was named Little Cottonwood after this tree. You can take a look at the leaves. Notice their pointy shape. This is a very thirsty tree, so you'll always find it where there's water. What else do you hear? I hear an airplane, but I also hear birds. Birds make that really cool sound using a special adaptation in their throats called a syrinx. The syrinx has these special flaps. It's two different channels, and the flaps move up and down in the channels to produce those sharp, distinctive songs. Why do you think birds produce songs? So I'm walking along and I find this hole. What do you think lives down in that hole? Any guesses? Okay, so we're out here in this wetland, right? And we just met the cottonwood tree, which you can see behind me there. And I want you to meet another tree to the left here. This is called Russian olive, and it's actually invasive. It does really well in poor soil, especially when the cottonwood trees have been removed. So this morning we learned at Wheeler Farm there's actually a disease that is spreading across cottonwoods. So listen to Amy Mae from Tree Utah talk about this disease.
And all of the cottonwoods here at Wheeler Farm right now have, I mean, it doesn't look like it. Many of them still look good, but they all have bacterial wetwood, which is killing the trees, and they've had to remove a number of them, and every year going forward they're going to have to as well. So it's a race for trying to keep the forest growing back in with other species. This is a good example of why you don't want all one variety of tree in any given area, because monocultures tend to be susceptible to diseases. Once something sets in, it's really hard to get rid of, and you kill everything all at once, basically. So that's sort of happening here. Ginkgos are not a native tree, but they're a great hardy tree. They're really good in all weather conditions. They're super strong. They're actually, I think, as far as I've read, I'm not sure if it's 100%, but they're like the oldest tree, that deciduous tree in the world. And so they're from China. They actually spread and look quite a lot like these trees do once they get large. And so they'll mimic the look of the cottonwoods without putting more cottonwoods in, which are doomed to fail essentially at this point. And so they'll have a similar look, and they also have a similar yellow tinge in the fall. So they'll match kind of the vision of what they've got for this farm. But overall, our plan here is to plant as many trees as we can going forward. So we'll be doing a lot of projects here at Wheeler Farm in the next few years, and we have already planted a bunch of trees here too, with as much species diversity as possible, with keeping with the look of the farm.
Okay, so the Russian olive here, it has a unique strategy that makes it invasive. If something is invasive, it usually is really good at competing. So in the case of the Russian olive, it sends out lots of seeds that have a high germination rate, high chance of success for those seedlings. It also grows really fast, up to 6 feet a year. And while this may choke out ditches and is really hard to remove, it does provide a habitat and food for birds, and so waterfowl and some wild birds do eat the fruit. of the tree. All right, and here we find one of my favorite things to find along a wetland. This is called horsetail. And this is smooth horsetail. You can tell because when you touch it, it feels pretty smooth. It is covered in this abrasive silicate, which gives it its other name, scouring rush. So to scour a pan is to clean it, so you could use these to clean off your pans. They're spore producing, which is different than a flower producing. So on the top of some of them, you might find a cone that has the spores, but these have probably been nibbled off by deer. And this is also a fun name for it is puzzle grass, which I think is cool because these kind of look like links in a puzzle. This is a very prehistoric plant. So if we go back 160 million years ago, that's when we first started to see the first flowering plants. And to get back to the first horsetail, we can go back another 200 million years. 360 million years ago, that's when we find the first horsetails on the scene in the fossil record. So pretty cool. These are annual. They just live for 1 year and die, but you can find them. They're native. You can find them all over. Lots of streams, rivers, and wetlands. Okay, and right over here you can actually see some horsetails that do have their cones on them. Those are the spores that they send out into the air. Do you know what other type of organism, not a plant, that has spores? Check out the lesson on fungus to find out. Alright, so here we see a common thistle, and it will have a purple flower. They often grow in disturbed areas. Can you think of why that might be, or think of what are disturbed areas? Things like roads. What do the plants look like around the roads? What kind of adaptations do they have? Like this one, I notice has some very spiky features. So next time you're at a disturbed area, you can try to think about what does it look like, the different vegetation between a disturbed area and an undisturbed area. Again, here we're panning over that Russian olive, which grows when there's not the native cottonwoods. So that would be something that grows in maybe a more disturbed area as well. Right as we ask the question, how does an area get disturbed, we get an answer here from the sign. Flood storage and pollution control. During spring or storm floods, erosive and damaging water flow is reduced and stored in the wetland basin, the basin being that low area out there. Sediment settles in the wider stream channel and overflow into the wetland will be cleansed by uptake of pollutants by wetland plants. This results in savings to downstream taxpayers in flood damages and maintains water quality for fishing and other downstream issues. So what are the benefits of wetlands from what we just learned? So hopefully you can see that as a naturalist, all it takes is going on a hike where you slow down and look at what's around you. Alright, thanks for joining me as we explored this wetland here at Wheeler Historic Farm. It was great using the iNaturalist app, and every time we identified a new plant, now we can walk along and see our plant friends. We can greet them by name, and we know their life cycle, and we know how they live, and we can observe and learn more and more. So record your observations in your naturalist notebook and take a picture of you near a wetland and any observations that you make during that and post them to this path. Alright, and we are on the next adventure. Taking the kayak out on Cutler Reservoir, which is feeds into the Bear River. Reservoir on the Bear River. So you can see here